Ons volgende aanbieder is Shaun Green. The title of his presentation is Why Johnny Can't Create and What You Can Do About It. Some background on Shaun. Shaun is an associate at a large, well-known architectural practice, has been involved in the Association for Homeschooling for nearly 20 years, and is a trustee of the Pestalozzi Trust. Together with his wife Marita, he has been blessed with 7 children, all of whom have received home education since birth. He has been a part-time lecturer in computer applications in the Department of Architecture at the University of Johannesburg for more than 15 years. Other interests include theology, church, chess, and mountain biking. Is it church, chess, one word or one?
No, it's 2 words.
2 words.
I hope it's 2 words.
It's because I've looked at, Googled it, and it seems there is something like church, chess.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So it's church and chess and mountain biking. Shaun, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dion. Appreciate it. Okay, well, thank you for having me. My name is Shaun, which, by the way, comes from the word John. Shaun is really the Irish flavor of the word John. So maybe this presentation is also about me. So as I speak, don't assume that I'm speaking necessarily from a high horse position to everybody else. The title is Why Johnny Can't Create and What You Can Do About It. So, who is Johnny anyway? There's a Johnny over there on the slide. I don't know if you recognize that Johnny. That's not the Johnny in question. This Johnny, maybe this Johnny is me. Sometimes this Johnny is my child. Maybe he's my son. Maybe Johnny's just my excuse to generalize. Johnny is a consumer rather than a producer. Johnny's is the typical person growing up in today's society, here in South Africa, even anywhere else in the world. Johnny attends a public school. He knows how to stand in queues. He stays in the class where he belongs. He is not disruptive. He is observed and measured by others. He does not decide for himself what he should learn, and he is rewarded for this, at least on the surface. Johnny is someone else's social and educational experiment. And I know this because I was on the receiving end of it myself as well. And I did reasonably well through that system. I must just give acknowledgement at this point. The title comes from a series of books, or a set of books. And these aren't the only ones. You can find other books that start with this, Why Johnny, and then cannot and a verb. The first of these books was published, I think, back in 1986. It was titled Why Johnny Can't Read. We can highly recommend this book. It was a pushback against a particular way of teaching children how to read. And this book helps for people to teach children how to read. But I've also, in our house, in our library, we've also happened to have the Why Johnny Can't Preach and Why Johnny Can't Sing Hymns. They were by different authors. So I must give some acknowledgement to them. And then secondly, a disclaimer. None of what follows is necessarily exhaustive. I haven't gone and read lots of academic literature on the subject. It's just I was asked to prepare a talk, and I thought this talk would be very topical for a get-together like this. It is whatever sprung to my mind on the subject. Okay, so the context. Where does Johnny live? What is this world that he finds himself in? It's an age of accelerated change, and it's a change that's heading into an unknown future. What we assume is true today, what we assume is valid as far as education is concerned today, is not necessarily even going to be the case in 5 years' time. It is said that people will often overestimate what will happen in 2 years' time, with technology especially. but there's almost nobody around, very, very few visionaries around that can tell you what's going to be new in 5 years' time. So how do we set a path for education when this world is changing so fast that almost none of us know where it's going just 5 years from now? How do you even write a textbook for that? By the time Johnny has gained the knowledge we think he needs for a profitable future, the environment will have shifted. So in an age of accelerated change towards this unknown future, we find that in the field of technology, just as one example, but there are others as well, artificial intelligence is discussed a lot these days. It's threatening how Johnny will work. My wife does editing for a Romanian company, and she already has to use artificial intelligence to accelerate the way in which she edits articles. The software is supposed to help her do that much more rapidly. And what this means is that previously where a company may have employed more people, it employs fewer people now, as this artificial intelligence is actually busy learning how to do these tasks from the people themselves. Another threat that's busy changing are standards. If you are involved, like I am, in architecture, we have new building regulations coming out all the time. There's always an extra chapter being added on to the national building regulations, and the chapters that are there are forever expanding and changing. So again, that's also an unknown future. You don't know what's going to happen next. Health and safety regulations also changes the future. The way we think about what is health and what is safety, and the regulations and guidelines that we have to adhere to. Society as well. Society has expectations, places expectations upon us. How do we live with one another? What are our relationships like with the communities within which we live? That also changes, and I say that it's unsustainable because we are living in an age where many promises are made to society, and these promises are made regardless of whether or not they can actually be fulfilled. This also makes the environment difficult to plan for. And then jobs are put there as well in inverted commas, whatever a job is. That's something, that's a question on its own as well. I think assuming that there will be such a thing as a job in the future is very presumptuous. It looks more and more like people will be moving from project to project and will be appointed basically more on freelance type basis to solve problems. But the queues for jobs are growing. If there's a job on offer, the queue is long. And the sad thing is, people who are standing in that queue are often not the problem solvers that are needed for that job. They just don't have the problem solving skills. And then there's the economy that we operate within. Again, unsustainable expectations. Promises are made for economic benefits and future, and there just isn't the pool to support that, those promises. And so that threatens how Johnny will survive in the future as well. Okay, so what kind of a Johnny do we need in the future? If we are to prepare Johnny for this unknown future, this rapidly changing unknown future, these are some of the things that I thought are important. Johnny needs to be curious. He needs to be flexible. He needs to be willing to take risks. Johnny must be efficient. He must be able to identify opportunities. Johnny must be a lifelong learner. Who knows what he's going to do next? Johnny must be a communicator. Johnny must know how to work together with other people. Johnny must know how to network. He must know how to solve problems. Johnny must be creative. That's the one thing that Johnny must be. He must be creative. And just think for a moment and ask yourself, if this Johnny I'm talking about, is Johnny any of those things today? Is the next generation being raised to be those things? Very often not. Generally, no. Johnny is not those things. If Johnny becomes those things, it's not because of the systems that are there. It's in spite of those systems. Maybe there was somebody in Johnny's education that was thinking out the box, that was helping Johnny to think out the box as well. Okay, so why is Johnny in this situation? Why is it that Johnny can't create? Some reasons that I thought of. Johnny is expected to do only as he is told. He must take a number and stand in line. He is taught that he must be measured by others. Johnny does not play enough. He's given so much work to do from morning to evening. He can't do anything else. He can't play. Johnny is waiting for someone else to tell him what to do. He expects to be spoon-fed. He may not take risks. He may not experiment. I mean, if you were to pour the water into the acid, that would be dangerous. So Johnny may not experiment. He may not hurt himself. He may not break things. He may not take things apart. He is not allowed to disrupt. If Johnny makes too much noise, he's told to calm down, be quiet. And Johnny is narrowly specialized. As he moves through his education and his upbringing, he is expected to choose a field and stick to that field. And in the words of Supertramp song from long ago, the logical song, Johnny is acceptable, respectable, presentable, a vegetable. Einstein, who's probably one of the most wrongly quoted famous people, he said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." Einstein, for all his cleverness, understood how important imagination was, how important creativity was. Okay, so proposals for what we should not do, and then proposals for what we should do. This is what we should stop doing. We should stop the standardized one-size-fits-all solutions. Everybody's different. We've all got different callings in our lives, different circumstances that we need to work with. So to bring a one-size-fits-all approach to people who are different, how can that work? We need to stop the bureaucratic solutions. And again, solutions is in inverted commas. Bureaucracy doesn't really solve problems when it comes to educating, drawing out the potential, the God-given potential within people. We need to stop with the standing in the queues. What a waste of time anyway. We need to stop doing all the thinking for Johnny. We must stop obsessing over health and safety. Let Johnny drink out the hosepipe. We need to stop breathing down his neck. I'm not suggesting that we are reckless with Johnny or that we just don't care. I'm not suggesting that. But we must stop over-nannying Johnny. This is what we can do. We must acknowledge that Johnny needs a customized, self-directed education. We must let Johnny take things apart. Encourage him to reassemble them. It might not work. I should just warn you, I've got some Johnnies in my house too. We must let him solve more of his own problems, especially the difficult ones. Don't jump in there and solve his problems for him. He must solve his own problems. And then when he's been solving his own problems, give him some more. And let him experiment. Now, my oldest daughter is 24 years old. She's studying industrial design at the University of Johannesburg. She's a fourth-year student doing her honors. She's done very well at the expense of my wife's kitchen, because she's forever cooking strange things on the stove, inventing things. Our kitchen is the laboratory. They have a laboratory or a workshop at the university, but somehow she prefers to use the kitchen. We must expect Johnny to break things. And that is difficult. As a father, I have to admit it's not so easy to have the workshop in the state that it is in often. And when you go and you reach for a tool and it's not working properly anymore. But the investment in Johnny is worth more than that broken tool. And I'd like to say, I am convicted when I say that, because I also struggle to create this environment. So we must expect him to break things. We must allow some pain, let him get hurt, but be ready to comfort him when he does get hurt. Allow him to follow his interests. Encourage him to self-evaluate. Let him measure himself. This is what we expect as adults in the workplace when you have a work colleague and this person's not checking their own work. It's a nightmare to work with such a person. But we send people to school, and for more than 10 years they are measured by others. They're not measuring themselves. So teach Johnny to measure himself. If he says to you, what do you think about this? Then you say back to him, what do you think about it? Are you happy with it? Do you think it's working? He must examine himself and even be prepared to acknowledge his mistakes and his problems. And Johnny, we must also provide an environment then that allows for all of these things. And then let him find good friends so that he can share this adventure, learn how to collaborate. Let Johnny play. If we want Johnny to be creative, let him play a lot, unsupervised even. Let him get bored. Einstein thought being bored was a good thing. And if you know Johnny, demonstrate these things to Johnny. We must live them as well. We should also be curious. That aha, when something strange has happened or you've figured something out, be that person in front of Johnny, be that role model that he needs. And that's it. That's my talk.